Hello and welcome. I'm Jennifer Brown-Lerner with the Sports and Society program at the Aspen Institute, the home of Project Play. This is our fourth and final event in our summer conversation series. Through these events, we've been asking you to help us develop and pressure test ideas that will ensure when youth return to sports that they are stronger and better than ever, with increased access to community-based sports. The summer conversation series has been broken into 4 R's: recover, rebuild, reform, and resources. The most promising ideas discussed during the series will be reflected in the Project Play Platform for Action that will be presented at the Project Play Summit in October, which goes virtual this year. More on the summit at the end of today's session, so be sure to stay tuned. The first event was on the recovery we need now. What do Parks and Recs, YMCAs, and other community-based providers need to survive the next 12 to 18 months? The second event on the rebuild was focused on how to spend the permanent federal funding for parks that was just signed into law and explore other opportunities for support at the federal, state, and local levels. The third event was on sports governance, how to best organize the human, financial, educational, technological, and other assets that we have in the space to create the outcomes that we seek. Recordings and summaries from these events can be found on the Project Play website. For today's discussion, our conversation is centered around ideas to mobilize communities and to get and keep more children playing sports by thinking creatively about how to bring the needed resources together. Resources aren't just limited to financial resources, but also the people, the partnerships, and the innovations. Today's speakers are going to help us answer the questions you've been asking. What else can I and my local organization do to make community-based sports the dominant model through age 12? How can national sport organizations and other trusted brands support? How can we, along with other key sectors like nonprofits, entrepreneurs, and schools, collaborate more effectively? Ultimately, we hope that by listening to our speakers today and all of you, we can achieve our shared goal: quality, affordable, community-based sports for each and every young person who wants to play. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. We want you to participate in the conversation as you have done throughout the entire series. And there's 3 ways to do so. First, our chat function. Click the icon at the bottom of your screen to share your thoughts. Tom Ferry will be hosting that part of the conversation and will be posting related links that we all mentioned. Second, ask a question and answer of our panelist. Click the icon and send questions to our panelists. My colleague Marty Fox will be joining us at the end to ask your questions. And finally, participate in our live polls. You'll see 2 throughout today's session. We will send a recap of the conversation, including a video recording after the webinar. We hope that you share during the webinar and after on social with the hashtag Project Play and tag us at Aspen Institute Sports. Aspen Inst Sports. So let's get started. For today's conversation, I'll be joined by 3 panelists, plus 2 of my Sports and Society colleagues who I'll introduce as they join me in the conversation. So first, please welcome Edward Roldan, President of Southeast Bronx Youth Coalition and Director of Football and Interim Athletic Director at PSIS 76 in Harlem, New York. Throughout his career, Edward has designed and implemented youth development sports model that bridges the gap in youth sports from ages 5 to 14 between local non-for-profits, local business, and local education institutions. Thanks so much for joining us today, Edward. And from your introduction, it is clear that you wear many, many hats. But today we're going to talk about your affiliation with PSIS 76. So can you tell us a little bit about your school and the students at your school?
Well, we're located in Harlem, 4 blocks south of the Apollo Theater. We have a diverse group because we have a lot of international students that are immigrants that come into our country there. And it's been a lot of bridges to bridge during this time. We offer a diversified sports program, and we do not believe in the pay for play. We feel that all students should be entitled to be able to play without paying. And what we do is we believe in the model of it takes a village to raise a child. And that is what drives our program. We involve local sponsors, politicians, and our school administrators, and my not-for-profit and we provide the volunteers. And what we do is that we overcome the deficits and the obstacles that we encounter during the year to run the program. So when there isn't a budget, we put these pieces together to get the resources we need to run the programs effectively.
Well, thanks, Edward. And I know this is a challenging time for all of us sorry, we're trying to get your slides put up. I know we did so much great work to talk about slides, so we're going to work on trying to get those put up. Of course, we have to have a little technical glitch or it wouldn't be 2020. But we've had an opportunity to talk with Edward a lot, and he has some really great ideas for inclusion in our platform for action. And I wanted to spend some time kind of talking through them now. So the first idea was focused on building community relationships across organizations and sectors. And I know you've done incredible work to cultivate partnerships within your communities with business, with families, and with politicians. So I'm hoping you can spend a minute talking about what you've done to date.
Well, it's extremely important. What I do is visibility is important within your community. So when I go through the community, and even if I'm going out to get a sandwich or whatever, I always like to introduce myself to the local vendors. When I'm out and about, I like to find out who the owner is. I like to know who my local politicians are. I go out to the schools in my district and introduce myself a little bit to the principals and start to build relationships in that manner where we all become comfortable with each other, where we become approachable. Once I feel that we are approachable, then what I start to do is introduce the program that I'm trying to either run or set up. And at that point, introduce them to it and try to seek their involvement because they're part of the community and they play a key role. With the politicians, it's important to get out in there and introduce yourself because politicians are key. They have constituents. Constituents is what makes up our communities. And you can use their office as your bulletin board. Go in there, put your flyers up, set up meetings, talk to the politicians. Let them know what you're doing. Give them awareness, create a presence. Find out when they get their monies yearly. Usually it's in October to get money for the following year. Get up in there, find those dates, make your pitch, made it known, let them assess your needs. You do that together. And then at that point in those times, you can apply for their grants or they can tell you what grants are available and you can apply for them. With other organizations, such as your local vendors, get them involved. You know, they like to contribute to the community that they service. That's important. Sometimes people don't know the businesses that are in the community. It's a great way for them to establish relationships with the community members, also with the politicians, because they like to politic also. Again, let them be your bulletin board. Let them express your enthusiasm out there. It's real important. Let them know that you're about the kids and the people that they service, which is extremely, extremely important to them. And then also go out there and meet the schools. Go to your alma maters where you have relationships. Introduce yourself to the principals, right? Because we can't get anything done without the decision maker. So it's important to identify that principal, be able to go in there, let them introduce you to the assistant principal and the key people so you know who the key players are and you know how to approach them to cut the red tape and be able to get the answers that you need and to be able to present, which is extremely important. Find out where they lack. Like this, when you go ahead and present, you can put your ideas and match your ideas with their ideas and have a common thread and a common bond in what you want to achieve, which is extremely important. It's how my situation has been fortunate enough to be able to grow an idea that was a dream. I presented scholarships. From scholarships, I wrote a curriculum. I ran the curriculum for 5 months. The students loved it. They demanded for the principal more. They contacted me. I presented what we needed to do from there. And now 5 years later, we have championship sports programs being run at the school, state championships, and we have pro players coming in from all different sports, coming to give positive messages to the kids. And we also have local people, politicians, former players that played in my program over the last 35 years. And it's a tremendous impact when the kids see that, wow, you know, you were me at one time and now you're coming back to talk to me about it, or you're successful. And what you're trying to do is impact people, but show them that within the community, it all came from where they come from. And that's really important. Then the next thing is get the parents involved. It's tremendous. So what I do is not only get them involved and get them to volunteer, but I want to educate them. Education is really important because it debunks the myths that are put out. For example, in the sport of football, concussions for the last 5 years had a lot of myths to it. So what we did is we brought professionals. We brought our partners in, the Hospital for Special Surgery, to come in and talk about concussions, right? We've brought USA Football in to talk about that, medical doctors, professionals locally, pro athletes, you know. And then on top of that, we go ahead and we have an education program that we tap in through our national charters, and the same education that our coaches go through, our volunteers and our staff, we offer it to the parents. So the education has continuity across the board and nobody is learning anything different than the other. So the message that you're putting out is consistent, it's positive, and it's all absorbed and people buy into it. And the most important thing is not only to present it, but to get them to buy in, because when everybody's all in, that's what leads to the success of the program.
Great. And for those of you that maybe missed the first slide, the school Edward is talking about is a K-8 school located in Harlem, New York. And as many of you know, we've been running a national search for innovative middle school programs. So we're going to put a poll up right now because we feel like middle school is an incredible opportunity to introduce kids to sports. So wanted your thoughts on what resources do middle schools need most to grow the quality and quantity of sport opportunities offered to students. So we're going to keep that poll up for a little bit while we move to Edward's next idea that really focuses on leveraging national governing bodies and other program resources to improve your program. So Edward, you have quite a number of partnerships that you've developed for your school, and hoping you could take a minute to just tell us about one or two of those.
Sure. Well, one of the partnerships I have is with USA Football. One of the most important things is that becoming a member of USA Football gave us a tremendous amount of help because we were able to access through them a lot of national grants, a lot of programs that dealt with issues, and also an educational platform for our group. Most of it is at cost or at no cost or at a minimal cost, which was extremely important. And when we rolled that out, the importance of that is that we were able to have it done across the board there. Another partnership that we have is with our partner, the Hospital for Special Surgery. And what we did was they had a partnership with the school, and what they offered was like free physicals and things of that nature. But when I came in, I started to participate in their clinics and workshops. And what I did is I built a good relationship with their education division and partnered up with people within the division and supported them. And what happened was showing that loyalty and that support to them came back 1,000-fold back to us, because then what happened was we started to be included in clinics and workshops for coaches, for players, for parents, which at that point now we do the national, their national sports studies on sports science. And what we do is we work on preventing injuries before they happen. And we've had a big impact on that. And there's one other organization that I want to touch on when it comes to organization that I didn't speak on previously, which is the National Federation of High Schools, which is extremely important. They have a program on the site called nfhslearn.com. And what you could go in there is you go in there and you can sign up for courses, and a lot of the courses are free. They can give you courses on cardiac arrest, heads up football, COVID-19 for administrators and directors, which I made everybody in my program take since we're in the epicenter. These courses were all free to us. So we eliminate the conversation, oh, do we have to pay for it? You don't have to pay for it. I just need a moment of your time and your patience. Do the classes, get certified. And when you do it through the National Federation of High Schools, if you go back to college, you can actually use these courses, and you can get elective credits also applied to your education and save yourself some money. So understanding how the national organizations can impact you, and taking out national charters brings a tremendous amount of credibility to your program, builds your relationships locally, regionally, and nationally. And once again, what it does is it educates the public, which at that point makes them comfortable and gives you the support you need locally, because that's where it all starts.
Well, thanks so much. And thanks for all of you that participated in our poll. And Edward, if you can't see the results right now, I think you'll be pleased to hear that you've already influenced our audience significantly. And they feel like the most important resource for middle schools right now is more partnerships with community-based, excuse me, sport providers. And speaking of resources, not to put a shameless plug in for one way that we also are connected, but you had mentioned to us that through learning a little bit more about Project Play that you were drawn to the How to Coach Kids platform website as another resource. And so just wanted you to take a minute to talk about how partnerships, even with national organizations like ours and others, can help bring in fabulous resources for your organization at the local level.
It's really important there because what it does, it opens up additional avenues that you might not have known about. And when you open up those doors, opportunities that you didn't have in your game plan now can be incorporated. New ideas are shed, new relationships are set. Now you can establish networks, which are really, really important. I think it's also really important that people understand that one of the biggest problems when it comes to middle school sports and youth sports is building the relationship with the local high school and the local high school coaches. For years, there's been a gap there. And I've just been real blessed that since I've been around for a while, I've always known that. And I've always been able to build strong relationships with local high school coaches. And I have at least 16 high schools in the tri-state area that tap into me and recruit my kids effectively. Blair Academy, Cardinal Hayes High School, Iona Prep, Bergen Catholic. These are just top high schools in the area, and their coaches are looking always out to me. I have national companies like Rydell that tap into me ever since the pandemic's been in. They've been tapping in to see how they can approach the business with youth programs, high school programs, because I'm a tremendous source for them in the state of New York. I'm also the director of Section 11, and I'm responsible for 5 counties on the New York State Council of Youth Football. So I'm a tremendous amount of source, not only for the community, not only for youth sports, but also for the industries that go ahead and provide the support to our sports. So it's a great way to network, find out about the grants that they offer, you know, be it if it's once or twice a year, put it on your calendar, and every year work that rotation on your calendar over and over again. So with the money that you don't have, you can still get the things you need and be successful and achieve your goals and meet your needs by the time it's ready to go.
Well, thanks, Edward. And I don't want to cut your third idea short, but I think you've covered it in a lot of our conversations around educating yourself and your coaches on best practices. We talked about how to coach kids. You talked about your partnership with Hospital for Special Surgery, and really just the opportunity to leverage all of your networks to think about where there are potential partnerships. And I think you've given us a great preview of our next speaker. So I'm going to thank you right now. And make sure that you will stick around for our audience Q&A at the end. And I already see some rolling in. And I'm going to invite Evan Brandoff onto the screen, who is the founder and CEO of Leagueside. Hi, Evan. Great to see you.
Hey, Jennifer. Thanks so much for having me.
Great. Well, before we get started, in our field, we have a lot of organizations that start with League as the first part of their name. But Leagueside might be new to some of the folks in our audience. So hoping you can take a minute or two to tell folks who Leagueside is.
Definitely. And before I do that, Edward, it was great hearing from you. And I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you to everyone that's attending this today. I assume many of you run community youth sports programs. What you do is so important. And the fact that you're attending webinars like these to learn how to do it even more efficiently is incredible. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And now to answer your question, Leagueside, we're the nation's leading youth sports sponsorship platform. So we connect thousands of community youth sports programs with regional and national sponsors. The brief backstory, about 6 years ago, I was living in Detroit. One weekend, I was volunteering at a basketball tournament. These kids were like 12 years old and dunking. They were incredible basketball players. But more importantly, I looked around the auditorium and I realized there's no better way to engage with a group of families than when they're together in the community watching their kids play sports. And simultaneously, these sports programs, they rely on local businesses to sponsor them in order to give them the resources and the funds they need. So what we did over the past 5.5 years, we've built a national network of about 10,000 community sports organizations, help them standardize their sponsorship offering, and connect them with regional and national sponsors, including Comcast and Panda Express, in order to help those companies achieve their community marketing goals, but more importantly, their community impact goals, and lower the cost for kids to play sports.
It's awesome. And I'm sure very valued and so appreciated by folks. So you mentioned that you have over 10,000 youth sport providers, participating in your site. And I know you've been asking them lots of questions about what's happening right now as we face really, unprecedented times, but a lot of the unknown. And so, wondering if you could share some of the trends that you're hearing from folks out there about what youth sports leagues and providers are facing right now.
Yeah, so what's exciting is we're seeing that over 80% of the organizations in our network are back in play this fall season in some capacity. Challenge is, and Edward highlighted the pay-to-play model previously, a lot of the organizations that are back in play are more elite clubs, travel programs, and the programs that are more recreational in nature are struggling to return to play. In fact, we see that 35% of parents are feeling more of the financial burden now than ever, which is impacting their ability to put their kids back into youth sports. And a lot of the local businesses that were supporting youth sports programs are no longer able to support local youth sports programs. So sports organizers and parents alike are looking for how they can, get much needed financial resources, and have seen the sentiment from families and youth sports leagues increase significantly about their welcoming of corporate partners coming in and sponsoring their league in order to lower that financial barrier.
Great, and it's important for us to note too, from our own research as well, that parents have significant health and safety concerns as their kids return to youth sports. And some of the research that we've done with parents in particular has seen communities of color are even more fearful or concerned with health and safety as they move forward. And we have to acknowledge that providers are facing increased costs to ensure that they have COVID-19 safety protocols in place and to keep kids safe. So unfortunately, costs are going up while lots of revenue is going down all around. But I think what you're getting at is that there still is opportunities to build incredible partnerships between national brands and even local businesses and local community sports providers. So on the next slide, I know we talked a little bit about some of the trends that you guys are seeing from your corporate sponsors, and this is really exciting to us, and hoping you can take a minute to talk about how there are more folks looking for scale, more folks looking to reach more kids. What does that mean, and what can that look like?
Definitely, and I appreciate, you filling in the gaps there. What's super exciting is a few years ago, so many of the brands that we spoke to were so ROI focused. How can we acquire new customers by sponsoring youth sports leagues, and how can we reach the elite clubs and more affluent communities? The trends that we are seeing of late is that there is such a more significant focus on impact with their sponsorship dollars. They want their dollars to go towards reaching as many families as possible. And an incredible outcome of the BLM movement is Fortune 100 companies have committed about $2 billion to supporting initiatives in communities that are predominantly people and kids of color, but they haven't necessarily allocated those dollars. They don't know the right way to allocate those dollars. Sponsoring youth sports programs is proven to be an amazing way to support those communities. Kids that play sports do better in school, do better in college. It brings communities together. 95% of Fortune 500 CEOs played youth sports. So as we're having these conversations, we're seeing a tremendous trend, towards how can youth sports sponsorships help more kids play sports, reach as many people as possible, and specifically support programs with families that are in financial need.
Fabulous, and appreciate you citing some of the same statistics that we use to talk about the value of youth sports. And for those of you that are looking for those statistics, please visit the Project Play website and you can see our awesome infographics that I know League Side refers to often as well. So Evan has some ideas for our platform for action as well. So I want to flip to the next slide. And I love this idea of embrace new sponsorship opportunities with national corporations. I'm curious, Evan, if you can really articulate what are the opportunities that you see and how organizations that we know that are on this call can take advantage of them.
Yeah, so we recommend the 10-second League Side plug. Go to leagueside.com and it's free to join our network. All that means is you'll start hearing about sponsorship opportunities if there's a sponsor that is interested in sponsoring your organization. So we have a whole sales force here at League Side that's going out and finding regional national sponsors. And as their interests match the criteria of your organization, you'll get notified that you have a sponsor opportunity. So when we say embrace new sponsor opportunities, historically people were hesitant to have a logo on their kids' jerseys or whatever it may be. But we have a lot of data to suggest that having a corporate sponsor makes the kids feel like professionals, and it significantly reduces the cost for kids to play. So it truly is a win to everyone involved.
Great, and I think technology is all part of everybody's life right now as we sit here on another Zoom platform to speak with each other. But talk about how technology, not just through League Side, but through other innovators and entrepreneurs in the space, can help folks locate additional funds and resources.
For sure, and first off, highly recommend transferring to, if you haven't already, a professional CMS, a professional website or messaging service, like a League Apps, who you'll hear from soon, or a TeamSnap or a Sports Engine, because having that professionalization of your organization, first off, it's really easy to do, and second, it makes your organization a lot more accessible to have more members, but also more sponsors. Second, there's a ton of incredible resources, including FlipGive and SnapRaise and other fundraising tools, where just by making purchases that families are going to be making anyway, a certain percentage of those purchases could go back to your organization to, again, lower the cost for families to get involved.
And right now, I think we all have found a new entrepreneurial spirit, innovative spirit within ourselves as we cope with the challenges that we face by communities. But you have an idea here to encourage more partnerships that aren't just related to the financial resources, but also the spaces and the other resources that folks, that local providers need. So hoping you can talk a little bit more about your thoughts here.
Yeah, so going back to the point from earlier of what sponsors are looking for, they want to sponsor programs that have the most participants. So when we say encourage more entrepreneurial and innovative partnerships, it means, if you're in a community that you only have a street and a soccer ball, be creative, turn it into street soccer. If you only have 12 kids that want to play baseball on a given Saturday, play quickball or a different sport instead. By making sports fun, making it more accessible, getting more kids involved, it's going to not only just have such great benefits in the community, but also allow for more corporations to want to come in, get involved, and help sponsor and lower the financial burden for more families in the community to play.
Awesome. And I think I can share that the innovation in my own household has included finding new spaces to play that I did not know existed in our neighborhood. So thanks so much for sharing, Evan, and for introducing League Side and all the great resources that you mentioned to everyone. We're going to thank you now and invite Nate Baldwin to join us, and Evan will be back to answer some questions at the end. So Nate, hoping that your video will come on in a second. Oh, there you are. Great. Hey, Nate, great to see you. Nate serves as, has a newer role as a customer success manager at League Apps, but he is a former Parks and Recs professional from Appleton, Wisconsin, a community that we at Project Play know well, as we honored them as a 2018 Project Play champion. And so Nate, just to get us started, can you tell us a little bit about the work that you did in Appleton and why we honored you as a champion back then?
Sure. Well, I'll just say first, it's really exciting to be here. Happy to be here. I want to thank both Evan and Edward for their perspectives. I think, what they shared is so important, and I think it really sets the stage perfectly for some of the things we're going to talk about here. But yeah, thanks for the introduction. I spent the previous 6 years as the youth sports programmer for Appleton, Wisconsin Parks and Recreation. When I came into that program, I would describe it as a very typical program. We were experiencing the same types of declines as you were seeing on a national scale. We had seen about 20% participation decay during the previous 5 years. And so what we really set out to do with this program was rethink the entire thing. How are we providing our leagues? How are we providing our camps? What was guiding our principals with those camps? How are we managing our logistics? We took a look at everything from the program experience to the internal efficiencies and operations that we were using. And through a real systemic assessment and renovation of those things throughout the program, we saw a direct result on the field. And I think it touches to the bottom line here. And actually I can update this even further. In the 6 years that I was involved in that program, our participation increased by over 75%. So
wow.
we took 5 years of decay and flipped that completely on its head simply by investing in the program experience, but also investing in our own internal operational efficiencies, which we're going to talk about a little bit more here. But through a variety of reasons, some philosophical, some just bad timing, I actually left that position back in March. And since that time, I've come on board at League Apps, which is a sports management platform provider that Evan gave a wonderful introduction to. And it's been a really natural transition for me because this is an organization that's very committed to social impact, equity, inclusion, all of the things we led with at Appleton Parks and Rec. And they are dealing on a daily basis with the very tools and resources that help make an organization like an Appleton Parks and Rec or any community-based provider be more effective and be more efficient in their operations and ultimately in the experience they're delivering to their participants. So it's been a great match so far, and I'm excited for my time there.
Great. And already you've drawn connections from what Edward talked about in terms of partnerships and the quality of the programming, and what Evan talked about and the technology, and really woven them together in terms of not just what you've done at Appleton, but now what you're doing with League Apps as well. So I want to jump right in to some of the incredible ideas that you have for our platform for action, because I think they really will help frame our conversation together. So the first idea is more professional development for Parks and Recs professionals with tools to help them work more efficiently. So let's first talk about the training piece of all of this.
Sure.
What training do you think Parks and Recs professionals, or for that matter, all youth sports professionals need that maybe they aren't getting?
At risk of being the guy who dumps a bucket of cold water on all of us as professionals, I guess I would just say that community-based programming in particular, and Park and Rec specifically, tend to be a field that's littered by routine and tradition. And I think we really have to bust out of that. A lot of that can be traced back to the way in which we're training our professionals. Many of us know how to build a roster. Many of us know how to draft a schedule. Many of us know how to balance a municipal budget. However, are we also getting the things that have a direct impact on the experience that a family is having on the field? Things like youth development, things like age-appropriate practice plans. Do we have an understanding of how to train coaches properly? Do we have deep knowledge of recruitment or marketing our programs? Are we able to sell the programs we've created? Are we able to compete in a marketplace that is competitive? And so I think we really need to do an assessment of how we are arming our park and recreation professionals in particular, but more widely our community sports professionals, to deal with the sport ecosystem as it exists today and not 25 years ago. And I think that's kind of a situation we're stuck in. And this COVID moment has really kind of exposed that. Not to drag on this point, but League Apps did some industry research very recently, just within the last couple of months. And it determined that while a majority of organizations have taken this slowdown as an opportunity to be creative, to reinvest in the business, and to really assess critically their operational efficiency, community-based programs such as Park and Recs were the least likely organizations to have done so. And that's really a concerning statement, because at this time, Evan pointed out a great statistic showing how much finances are going to play into a family's ability to participate in the coming months and years. So therefore, these types of organizations are in a position where they can fulfill that. They're in a great position to fulfill that need. But the question is, are you prepared to do so? And so I think there's a real critical moment here for these types of organizations to really look at how they're ramping up and how they're preparing to serve that need.
Yeah, and I think that that's a perfect tie-in to what we are going to talk about and preview in a moment, which is Project Play's new redesigned Teamwork Toolkit, which I think helps both local program providers and communities really assess their needs right now and think strategically about how to address all of these elements of the youth sport experience that you mentioned. But you started off and in your opening comments as well is talking about some of the back office functions that also play into all of to this youth sport experience, whether you're in a city position or a community-based organization. And so curious where you think there might be some innovation around developing efficiencies or allowing the systems perhaps to even be a little bit more nimble as we think about our hybrid future that we're in.
Yeah, I can speak from some personal experience on this one, and that the way we manage programs in this particular sector of the industry can be very archaic. And I'm going to guess that I'm not alone. I'm going to guess a lot of people on this call experience the same thing. There's a lot of manual work. There's a lot of Excel worksheets. There's a lot of hand-holding of documents to do simple things like, build rosters, build schedules, handle fee waiver requests, things of that nature. There are some great technological tools that are now available and have been available for some time to make this process much more efficient, but also much more rewarding for the people we're ultimately serving, which is the parents and the children. It improves our process of communication. It improves our process of roster building. It gives us the time, I would say, this is the most important part. It gives us the time to focus on the quality of the program that we're putting on the ground, and requires less time into the process of putting that program on the ground. And I think that's a really important thing. If you had hours of your time as a programmer freed up to invest in your program, how would you do it? Well, for me personally, I would really look at the things that impact program quality. Are we communicating our vision and our mission? Are we training our coaches adequately? Are we giving them the materials they need to be successful? Are we providing a consistent experience across the board from team to team to team to team? These are the kinds of things you can do if given the ability, and if you are leveraging the tools and the platforms that are out there to help you streamline some of these back office processes.
And I think your second point here kind of ties into that from the perspective of coaches and providers themselves around bundling resources like program curriculum and other coach training, so that it almost becomes one-stop shopping for folks if they're looking for sort of how to bring a new type of program or a new sport into their community. Can you give us a sense of kind of what that might look like right now?
I think this is an area that is a really big opportunity within the industry itself. You know, this series has been great in exploring the different sectors of the industry and what the champions in those sectors are prepared to do. And I think one of the disconnects that I've noticed, at least from my time as a park and rec professional, is this or the lack of connection, I should say, between some of the national governing bodies and these grassroots programs on the ground. There seems to be a willingness from those types of organizations to provide the materials and the support and the guidance that directly could impact program quality. The issue, as I see it, is that many of these organizations on the ground, mine included, have no established connection with those organizations. We almost feel like we were irrelevant. And I think there's a real opportunity there to help build some of that collaboration in a more effective way. And I know that's going to be our next bullet point, so I don't want to jump ahead, but
no, it's perfect. I mean, I think that's a great tie-in, Nate. I mean, I think this idea about more facilitated collaboration across sectors is the opportunity of now. And I'm going to put you on the spot because I think that you said something when we were preparing for this. And so I don't want to take these words because they are yours. But I heard you say, we need to inspire the motivation across the community, and Project Play brings the data. So tell us what that means and what that looks like in terms of what you did in Appleton and are continuing to do.
Sure. So I think for us to see meaningful movement from this sector, a couple of things have to happen. First, we've got to inspire motivation for this sector to be a champion of this effort. And I think that motivation comes from seeing the data. It comes from seeing the case studies. It comes from reading the stories. And I know for me, in my experience, Project Play has been a really valuable part of that. I mean, you guys for years have put that data in a way that's consumable, in a way that I can then relate to my parents to help create buy-in, that I can relate to my coaches to help create advocacy. That's a really important thing because it brings in these organizations as champions of the effort. So that motivation piece is really important. And I think that motivation piece is also what leads to a willingness to go down that professional development path. It inspires the willingness to innovate and improve. And so I think that's a really key piece. And that is, you know, leveraging this material, leveraging this data to inspire more professionals across the sector as a whole. Once we have that, though, that's when that professional development piece that we've been talking about comes in. We as professionals have to take greater ownership of making sure that we have the knowledge base to provide a better program experience on the ground. And that goes across many different areas. That touches on technology, that touches on youth development, that touches on training, human resources, volunteer recruitment, creative financing, marketing, social media. It goes across so many different areas that there's always something we as professionals can be doing to develop our own capabilities so that we can better serve the needs of our families on the ground. But then that collaboration piece is the last one, that, you know, we have to be willing and able to find those partnerships that are out there so that we don't have to recreate the wheel. If there is great lesson plan material out there and we can connect with the organization that produces it, what a great collaboration that would be. If we can connect with a local business that is just as inspired by the need for greater access to youth sport in our community, what a great potential financial connection that would be. There's not enough of this going on out there right now. And I'm excited to hear about the types of collaborations that Edward has been able to embark on just out of his own ambition. And that's great. But also, even, you know, Evan, the kinds of relationships he's been able to facilitate with league side, these are really important collaborative pieces, because it's not just collaboration. It makes these organizations and people partners in the cause, you know, co-advocates. And I think when we're talking about system change and trying to move this forward, it's that advocacy and that growing voice that's going to be really important in seeing meaningful change.
Couldn't agree more. And we're going to launch our last poll right now, which really asks the folks that are on this call, what factor do you think is most important in making community-based sports the dominant model through age 12? And as folks respond to that poll, I'm going to thank Nate for this incredible conversation and let you turn your camera off for a moment while we transition to a brief preview of the Teamwork Toolkit. I see the responses are still coming in, so I'm going to introduce my colleague, Rania Bautista, who manages our community work, and she's going to give you a preview of our redesigned tool, the Teamwork Toolkit, which will be launched at the Project Play Summit. And just before we transition to Rania, just want to look at these great poll results and see that folks see lots of possibilities, but it looks like higher quality programming and more recruitment of underserved populations are high on that list up there. So thanks so much, and I'm going to turn it over to Rania now.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much. And thank you to our panelists for this really insightful conversation. I'm excited to be here to talk with you briefly about the new Teamwork Toolkit resource that we have been working on. The Teamwork Toolkit was initially designed and piloted in 2018 and 19 with the goal of empowering community leaders and guiding them in their journey to landscape their state of play and mobilize leaders around their findings. So we learned a lot from the first iteration of the tool and have used our learnings to inform this redesign, which will be launched, as Jennifer said, next month at the Project Play Summit, and will be free and open for use. The redesign is a simplified and streamlined version to support individual leaders in building and engaging your local networks in your communities to kickstart the process in determining your data collection needs and how you might engage other community members to collaborate in the process to grow access to quality sport opportunities for youth in your community, particularly as you're thinking about returning to play. Aligned with the Teamwork Toolkit activities and modules, Project Play has also built out a technical assistance offerings for folks who seek additional support in activating their networks and building capacity in their process. So the toolkit features 6 modules that you can choose from based on your priorities and where you see your community needs are. And you can continue to go back into the other modules throughout your process. So as noted, the Teamwork Toolkit redesign will be released next month at the Project Play Summit and will be available at teamworktoolkit.projectplay.us. And we're excited to continue this very important work with you all. And with that, I will turn it over to my colleague Marty for the Q&A session with our panelists.
Thanks, Rania, and thanks also to all of our panelists. And thanks to our audience. We've got a great number of Q&A questions. As usual, we don't have time to ask all of them on camera, but thanks to Edward for getting a lot of answers out behind the scenes. And Edward, my first question is actually going towards you. We had a question that asks, where did you get the resources to create your program in the Southeast Bronx? Where did you learn and did you have support in getting that off the ground?
Well, pretty much my initial background is I am an original charter alumni of Boys Clubs of America, and a lot of my core values were learned and at Boys and Girls Clubs of America. I had a tremendous mentor there by the name of Dale Drakeford, and when I became a summer youth employment worker, they gave me my first opportunity as a job, and what he did was he introduced me to what his job was. And got me involved when he used to apply for his grants for our clubhouse. He actually used to send me downtown to the offices where you would submit this. And I actually was networking with the decision makers in New York City. And I started to meet these people as a young youth worker. And what happened was, as I grew and I finally developed Southeast, I then became a member of the Department of Youth and Community Development. And it made it easier for me when I became an adult to reintroduce myself, because these folks remembered me as a youth employee of the club during the Summer Youth Employment Program, which is really big in New York. And that's how I learned the process and the system. And from there, what I did was I used my core values that I learned, and I was involved in the major leadership programs that Boys Clubs of America offered, and that helped build my foundation. And what I did pretty much is what I've learned over the years. When I used to also be a director there, my mentor did a tremendous job teaching me, and that just spilled over, and I just built on that. And pretty much I took that and added to it, and that's how it came about.
So a follow-up question, Evan and Nate, I'd love to hear your thoughts to this as well. If you were planning to start a youth-serving nonprofit in 2021, what should you be doing right now?
Well, first thing is make sure you establish your 501c3. That's really important, because obviously when you get into the bigger corporations and companies, they're looking for their tax write-offs and for you to be legit. So that's really important. Outside of that, the best public advocate you can have is yourself. Get out there, talk positive, build those relationships, get them to believe in your philosophy and what you're trying to do. And when the time is right, approach them, present it. And for me, enthusiasm plays a really big role, because if you don't believe in what you're doing, how is somebody else going to believe in you?
Evan, Nate, any different advice?
Nate, after you.
I think, like a lot of things, this comes down to vision and action. And I don't think this time is any different than any other time. I think for organizations that might just be starting or thinking about ramping up, it's a time to assess this quote unquote new landscape, determine what role you see yourself playing and your organization playing in the lives of the families that you serve. And then operationally, how you're going to go about satisfying those needs. And once you have that formula, it's good old fashioned sell, 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 and I'm not saying that in a let's make lots of money sense. I'm saying that in a we have to create buy-in, and we have to create advocacy for that vision to connect with the audience you're trying to serve. And that feels very unnatural to a lot of people in this space, but that's an entrepreneurial skill and value that there's an opportunity for some of that professional development I talked about. It's a really critical skill to have to master, especially in this time when things are difficult and when finances are increasingly scarce.
Evan, one question came in about, I think it's related to getting a program off the ground without a specific product in place. If you have an idea that you're starting to develop and pitch, how can sponsors be incentivized to partner with a pitch if there's a program that maybe doesn't have participants yet?
Unfortunately, that's challenging. Sponsors want to reach people, but I would say my best advice to someone who's thinking about launching a program: don't think about sponsorship yet. Think about how you could launch a program that's self-sustaining, and think about how do you get sponsorships, not to get from 0 to 1, but to grow exponentially from 1 to many. So don't think about how to get sponsorships early on, because that's going to take away mental energy from launching the best program possible.
A question for Nate. Nate, you were, when COVID started, at a Parks Rec department. Many have seen cuts due to COVID-19, if not in the years before. So how can nonprofits network to create programs for the community if there's not a support system from Parks and Rec?
Boy, that is a really challenging question. I guess my thoughts on that are that the collaborations you seek aren't necessarily related to survival. They're more related to, I keep coming back to this vision piece. They're related to vision. It's related to the purpose by which your organization exists. You know, what is it? What is the what are you trying to provide to your community, and what is the benefit and value of that to your community? And that's where some of these tie-ins start to occur. Some of the tie-ins to the plays and the messages of Project Play. You know, that data gives validity to those missions. That data gives talking points that you can then go out and use to build buy-in with your constituency, with your audience. Once those connections start to be made and the experience is good, those become your biggest stakeholders. Those become your biggest champions. And people want to be a part of something big happening. And I think to Evan's point earlier, these aren't necessarily relationships you attack for the purpose of securing funds, or you attack for the purpose of fulfilling selfish needs. These are people you're trying to bring into your mission, your vision. I know we talked a little bit about the Teamwork Toolkit, but I thought that was the biggest value of the Teamwork Toolkit. It was when we used it here in Appleton, it was an opportunity to branch out and seek out who the champions in our community were that shared the same vision, that shared the same motivation. And it allowed us to start exploring ways in which we could help each other. So I think it's a little bit more holistic than maybe it's being phrased in the question, but that would be my rambling thoughts on that.
And I think we have time for one more question, and I'll point it to Edward. Nate mentioned finding opportunities for professional development. So Edward, as you have started multiple programs, you wear many hats. How do you create those efficiencies and opportunities for professional development, both for you and for your staff?
I really have done it through building and cultivating relationships. HSS, I'll use as an example, is one of my partners, and I've utilized everything that they've brought to the table. When they call out to me, and just recently, AJ Pegno reached out to me and said, hey, I got a program that's new, and it's for your coaches, and we would like you to come out. I don't say no. That's an opportunity knocking on the door. You know what? You grab it. It's at no cost. You're educating yourself. You're educating your staff. And what it does, it enhances the program. Not only does it enhance the program, but then, to disseminate the information down to your volunteers, to your parents, that trickles out into the community. It reinforces your message and your mission, which is extremely important. And what it does, it makes your staff better educated, which allows you to give a higher producing program, because everybody's more efficient and trained properly. So you have continuity and uniformity in the process, which will reflect when you actually teach it to the kids, and that's important. Your biggest advertiser of your program are your children. Kids know when the program's good, because they're going to go out and they're going to tell their friend, and that friend's going to say, hey, I spoke to Johnny, and Johnny says, man, they had a great time, this, that, and the other. You need to come on down and check it out. And the growth of our program has happened like that. When the kids at the school use up all their slots and there's still slots available, then we offer it to the kids in the surrounding community, and they have friends at the school. And we've had no problem getting kids from the community to come in, which for a long time haven't had anything to do. And my best advertiser has been the kids in my program, without me having to kill myself. So, like I said, use it effectively, use it to promote your program, and most importantly, educate your people all the way down to the public, because they all grow your program together, and that's important.
Thanks. And I'm afraid that's all we have time for today, but thanks to all of you. Thanks to my teammates, Jennifer, Rania, Fumi, John, Emily, Tom. Thanks to Aspen's AV team, who've done so much behind the scenes. Thank you to our presenting sponsors for these summer conversations, ESPN and TeamSnap. And thank you, our Project Play Network. Your participation in this series, all of your comments and feedback will help us shape the ideas that get included in the platform for action being introduced in the coming weeks. We will see you again next month, October 13th through 16th, for the Project Play Summit, where we will help our network mobilize around the most promising ideas in the platform. All month, we've been announcing speakers who will be joining us. It's a really impressive group and many more to come. So be sure to sign up at as.pn/pp Summit to be notified when all our sessions go live. And we look forward to seeing many of you face-to-face in the workshops. If you weren't able to sign up for those, there is a wait list open. And remember to please sign up for our newsletter. We have a lot coming out between now and the summit that you won't want to miss, including our annual State of Play report for 2020. And if you don't already, follow us on social media at Aspen in Sports for the very latest on our Project Play reports, as well as news and resources from the world of sports. Thanks all, play safe, keep innovating, and we'll see you at the summit.
I'll just,
Yeah, sorry, Crystal. All right.